Welcome to this Mitchell Talks special, the runoff election, which is going to be held on Tuesday. And it is Tuesday. And here to help me break down some of the key races, my friend Kyle Loveless with WPA Intelligence, former state senator, tailgate politics partner with the America's political scientist, Keith Gaddy. And
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
It's always great to see you. And so we know that there's going to be it's a little blip. This is something this is usually about the time of year for us old timers that primaries were held in Oklahoma until everything changed about 20 years ago or so. Anyway, the primary was on the 18th of June. Some surprises that day when the Senate Pro Tem designee was ousted. And now Lonnie Paxton looks to be the Pro Tem going into the next session. It's Speaker Kyle Hilbert when they convene the new legislature for Organization Day in November when they're sworn in. But there's some unfinished business. What, 8 or 9 runoffs tomorrow, Kyle? How come so many?
Well, part of it is you're going to have a lot of runoffs because with open seats and you have a lot of turnover because of term limits, people are just interested, and that's what drives people to run. People that either just have never thought of running before, or people that have always wanted to run, but there's an incumbent, or they didn't want to take on an incumbent, but they thought, okay, now's my chance. And so that's why you see primaries that have 3, 4, 5 candidates run. Well, we're down to that. We've narrowed it down to down to 5, down to 2 people. And so that's why you see turnout drop, is all those other campaigns that were knocking doors and doing things, they're not there anymore. So their turnout that they were pushing to come out isn't going to be there, or it will be significantly less. So you have the top 2 vote getters in all these different races, and they have been targeting people. They've been calling people. I live in Senate District 47, and I received 7 pieces of mail on Saturday. So it's kind of like if you live in a runoff, you're kind of like the Snoopy's character that has the cloud raining on him. Everybody else around you is dry. They have no attention from the politicians. But those that are in the districts that have a runoff, you just are deluged with it.
All right. So these people, and by the way, there were a lot of organizations, like one-off organizations, single issue organizations. Like we did that when we were talking about McCourtney. They're still out there, these single issue organizations that only care about one thing. They turn out, don't they?
Well, it's a kind of a new era of politics, because you can get a super wealthy person just decide, you know what, I don't want to help out with any of the parties. I just don't like this incumbent because of this reason, and start their own super PAC and then drop a good chunk of money. And we saw it in Greg McCourtney's race, and an online, the Frontier has a story out today about how basically one donor from Nichols Hills decided, I don't like, Majority Leader McCourtney, and spent a couple $100,000, and now he's no longer in office. So it's a different time. It's a different era.
All right. And there's also some analysis that Senator McCourtney didn't take the challenge all that seriously. Right?
That's also a factor. Whenever an incumbent, and we always go back to the Gaddy rule and others, but whenever an incumbent is under 50%, that's never good. And so in a runoff, if you've seen, there's a couple of these races we're going to talk about here a little bit, the incumbent did not get 50%. And if they don't get 50%, they go to the runoff. So, or as in McCourtney's case, he lost.
All right. Well, we would do more time on the Gaddy rule, but he gets royalties for that, and I don't want to pay those today. So, all right. Now, let's talk about some of the big picture and get down to some of the more noteworthy ones in the Oklahoma City area and the Tulsa area.
Sure.
First, see if you agree with me. Number one, there's not going to be any party change in November. So these runoffs, it's all inter-party. These are still within the party, right?
Correct.
Number two, there's probably not going to be the insurgency in the state Senate, which is farther right than the mainstream Republicans, whatever those terms mean anymore. Lonnie Paxton, Senator Paxton, is going to be the pro tem come November, even though there was a challenge to him. There's been a challenge to Senator Treat. You know all of this, but it appears that the mainstream is going to maintain their dominance inside the GOP caucus in the Senate. Am I close to being right on those?
Well, I'm not one procrastinator reading the tea leaves, but I'll mark it down. I think Lonnie Paxton will not be the Senate leader in December, and I'll tell you why. So just rewind 2 years ago, and sorry to take this off on a little bit different. I probably should have.
No, that's breaking news here, buddy.
So 2 years ago, Greg Treat won, and the rumor around the Capitol was it was by 2 votes. So if he wins by 2 votes, okay, so since then, Senator Devers won, and that seat was a person that was supporting Treat, so that makes it down to 1. Then you have just in a few months ago, Senator McCourtney lose. Well, so there you go. There's a tie right there. Then you have Senator Garvin lose, and that means that the conservatives have a 1-seat advantage right now. And if you continue on with this path, you see, and I hate describing one side as conservative and one side not conservative, but I would say traditionally, and it's one of those things where I honestly believe that I think you're going to see the Senate is going to get more conservative, because whether it be Senator Bullard or Casey Murdoch or Shane Jett, or I think there's going to be, because the governor has spent some capital, and we'll talk about it in these other races, for more conservative members to win. And so like incumbent Cowboy Stevens that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, he's bringing on a challenger. He was a McCourtney Treat person. Well, he may lose, and if he loses, that means that the conservative wing gets another ballot. So it will be. You're right. Traditionally, and conventional wisdom is that Paxton will do. But I would say you would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if, come November 15th or whenever the Senate has their caucus elections, there'll be another change.
Okay. Now we have.
Sorry to throw you for a loop.
No, I mean, that's the reason I asked the question. So, all right, that's interesting. All right, we'll get to the Senate. Let's start with the one House seat that holds, to me, the most intrigue, and that is the A and B chair, right, challenged in a race that not many people thought he was going to have a problem with, and that's Representative Chairman Kevin Wallace. Let's throw up a little slide for you here. This is some of the courtesy.
This is something that Senate or House District 32 is Lincoln County, and it's a lot of outside the metro area. So he is not an Oklahoma City. I would not consider him an Oklahoma City metro legislator. You can see the demographics by female and male, and then also Catholic and evangelical, and then also by Republican and Democrat. And you can see the Republican Democrat, the district is 68% Republican. So even if there was a Democrat that filed, whoever wins the primary and the runoff is going to be the next House member. And Chairman Wallace, this is the reason why we're talking about this race. We're pushing $2 million. Let me repeat, $2 million is being spent on this House race, because you have the challenger write themselves their own check, and then you have Chairman Wallace raise close to $500,000 to $800,000 from all the different groups and lobbyists whatever. And then and that's not even, that's the 2 campaigns. Then you talk about the super PAC money that I talked about, the dark money. We're talking $2 million. It is unheard of in the state of Oklahoma.
Now, and by the way, not to interrupt you, which I just did, sorry. Anyway, the whole point was, you're seeing the governor is endorsing Chairman Wallace. People out there have seen famous people on the doorsteps. I mean, John Eccles, people like that out there knocking doors for Chairman Wallace. This is a big deal.
Governor Stitt, this cycle, to his credit, whether you like him or not, or whatever, he has extended more political capital than I have seen in a long, long time. Probably at least going back to Inhofe or Nichols. That extended themselves for this hard and this much for this many candidates. The Governor Stitt has been knocking doors, as you say, making phone calls, doing videos. He's been helping Chairman Wallace, and so that's where he really has extended himself. So will it make a difference? It's going to. Now the challenger in that race has the Attorney General Gentner Drummond's endorsement. So it's kind of a balance of who do you believe. But right now, I would have to say that Chairman Wallace ekes it out barely, but it could go either way. And again, this is one of those races where you and me, Scott, if I told my wife I'm going to drop $100,000 for a political race, I may lose, my wife would probably walk out that door. And so I don't know why he didn't wait 2 years when it's an open seat, but that's neither here nor there.
All right, so that's the one we'll be watching in the House. Now, there's a string of 4 that we're going to talk about in the Senate. Back to that ideological battle. Let's start with this one. This is Senate District 3.
This is an interesting race because there's an endorsement basically from the grave. Former Senator Tom Coburn, his wife, put out an endorsement for Julie McIntosh, and it literally says if Tom was alive, he'd be supporting Julie, which is one of the most interesting endorsements I've ever seen. However, it's factually accurate because when everyone knows he was famously a doctor and delivered 1,500 babies or whatever it is. When he went to D.C. for the United States Senate, the partner that he brought in was Julie McIntosh. It's my understanding. So this is another one where you have dignitaries going against the incumbent. This is one that comes down to tribal issues because the incumbent, Cowboy Blake Stevens, campaigned as a conservative, but once he got to the Capitol, I don't know that he's always voted that way. And so you have the governor, you have the governor helping the incumbent, the governor helping the challenger, and then you have former Senator Kim David, and this is she's now a corporation commission, and the challenger, the doctor, Julie Stevens, she's using the same color and font that Kim David did. So there's no shyness about it because part of this area overlaps with Kim David's old seat. And that's also a factor because after redistricting, Cowboy Blake lost about 60% of his district. So there was about 60% new district that he's never, so it was basically an open seat. And that's another one where he didn't start campaigning until filing. Well, that's a problem. And so he got caught literally, behind the 8 ball, and within a few votes, he got the most votes in the primary. So I would say you've got Mark Wayne Mullen, you've got Josh Burkeen. All these folks are lining up behind Julie on this one, and it's good. That one's going to be the one where I think the incumbent's going to lose, Cowboy Blake Stevens, and that's another one that he was a Treat and or McCourtney faction person.
Okay. Well, that's it. Yeah, the luminaries lining up on that one. Our next seat is Senate District 15. Senate
District 15. This is one where term limited Rob Standridge. Very rarely in Oklahoma politics do you see legacy races where someone either passes away or retires and hands it over to their spouse or their son or their daughter or whatever. But this is one where Senator Standridge is term limited, and Lisa Standridge, his wife, decided to run, and it was a multi-candidate, very crowded field. And I don't think most procrastinators or people looking at it would have thought that Lisa would have done so well in the primary. She was the number 1 vote getter. So for her, it's all about getting out her people. And then on this district here, this is one where you can see it's another one where the females have an advantage, 52-48. The district also, it skews, it's not, it is the Norman area, but also some of down in Blanchard and Noble County. And so you're going to, and this is another one where, and you see one of our data points down here, there's 21% are cord cutters, meaning that 21% of the people down there do not get their news through traditional media. They get it through other ways. So that is a data point that WPA here we specialize in. And I think that Lisa has been outspent 3-1. But I think to me, these runoffs, it's about turnout. And it's one of those where it's a weird combination of bedfellows. Barry Switzer is endorsing Lisa. And so this one's going to come down to the wire.
All right. And the McIntosh Stevens seat. for all practical purposes, this is the election, right? I mean, the Republicans
Correct.
are going to
Well,
win.
I'll say that back. The McIntosh one, the Senate district, the other one, that one is. I don't even think there's a Democrat. The one in Norman, there is a Democrat, but that district skews Republican anyway. And so even if I don't think that one's going to lose hands in November, regardless.
All right. Next, we're going to take a look at Senate District 33. We're up in Tulsa now.
Right.
And if I recall, this is the open seat. This was Senator Dom's seat, correct?
That is correct. It's the Broken Arrow Tulsa Media Market. And this was between Christy Gillespie and Shelley Gortney, both newcomers, both ladies, both conservative. This one's going to be one where the governor has endorsed Christy Gillespie. And this is another one where when you have two newcomers that are not a celebrity or not a previous office holder or not something like that, to where most voters, they're unknown, having a governor's endorsement is somewhat unheard of. And this is one where we're going to see how long the governor's coattails go, because both campaigns are working hard. Both campaigns are doing targeted mail. Both campaigns are fighting it over neck and neck. It was just a handful of votes between them in the primary. So this is one where you're going to see, and it really makes a difference. But I think this one, it's one of those where I hate to keep saying that the governor is going to sway it, but in these open seats, it's going to make a difference.
And by the way, as I recall, in the primary, wasn't he close to undefeated, the governor, and doing his endorsements?
In the primaries, and even going back 2 years ago. So far, it's, if I remember correct, if he has, he's lost one, but that was, but yes, his winning rate on other people's races is very high.
All right, and the last one we're going to take a look at is Senate District 47, and as I recall, this is the seat that is held by the current term-limited pro tem Senator Greg Treat.
Yep, and that is correct. And if you look, there's a little cutout there at the bottom, and that would be where I live. No, I live in Senate District 47. So I am intimately aware with this district, and I am involved in one of the campaigns. I've been helping Jenny Schmidt, so I have to disclose that straight up. But this is one where you have this is a race that I think is going to be in November, one of the biggest races in Oklahoma history, because spending wise, because the National Democrats have already put in close to $200,000 for the Democrat. And the Democrat, her name is Erin Brewer. She's on TV quite often being critical of Ryan Walters. And she has knocked my door twice already. And I'm a pretty hard Republican. And so with a pretty good voting history for voting for Republicans. And so if she's knocking Republican doors, she's going to be a formidable opponent. Now, that being said, Jenny Schmidt came in second in the primary. Kelly Hines came in first by about 80 votes. And then you had another candidate, Aaron Curry. They each got basically kind of like a third, give or take a point or two. This race is going to come down to a couple of things. Jenny can pull off the upset in this one because this is the only Senate race or whatever where there's something else on the ballot. Oklahoma City has a hotel motel tax on the ballot, so they've been driving voters out for that. That skews in Jenny's favor. Also, the third candidate, Aaron Curry, who ran basically as Jenny, both of them are the same cloth almost. 7 votes were distinguished between them. His voters are more traditional Republican voters as well. Governor Stitt has endorsed Jenny, as well as U.S. Senator James Langford. So those are 2 endorsements that those types of Republicans motivates them to go vote. Kelly Hines, on his hand, has received both the Oklahoma City police and statewide police endorsement, the FOP. And so they have been very active in his campaign. So you kind of have a battle of titans. And I think it's going to be this one is going to come down to turnout. I can easily see, 20, 30 votes, the winner in that.
Well, that's, by the way, thanks for all of this. These slides are courtesy of the WPA Intelligence and Kyle Loveless, who's been around and understands polling and data like few people. And so I'm just wanting to kind of finish up with, besides the fact 7-7 tomorrow, Tuesday, or today, whenever you happen to be seeing this, what does a big turnout tomorrow portend for November, or a low turnout for November? We know what's happening on the national level. There's a lot of Democrat enthusiasm right now, but who knows where it's going to be in a month, right?
Well, to me, the runoffs almost don't really affect. It's almost like these are like like for instance, the Wallace seat. That's all about, wind energy and local issues. Okay. Well, after tomorrow, everything goes from super local to national. Then all the Democrats, if you're a Democrat in the state of Oklahoma and you're wearing a blue jersey, you're going to have to ask, well, why is Kamala Harris wanting to get rid of private insurance? Why is Kamala Harris wanting to get rid of the internal combustion engine? Why is Kamala Harris wanting to do this? And do you agree with her? So Republicans will have it a lot easier in November in Oklahoma, because even Oklahoma Democrats don't agree with the national Democrats by and large. And so most Oklahoma Democrats are pro-life and pro-gun for the most part. And you have certain pockets in certain areas that are more liberal and whatever. You have those in Oklahoma County and those in Tulsa County. But by and large, once we get past the inter squad scrimmage, everyone has their jerseys on. It's red or blue. And so once that happens, then it becomes a lot easier for voters, because the difference between, and just using Senate District 47, Kelly Hines and Aaron Curry and Jenny Schmidt, slicing and dicing, where are they different on issues? Well, are they different on issues? It's difficult to find out. You have one candidate who is running on his record or running on his biography and nothing on issues. Then you have a candidate like Jenny who is running almost all on issues. And so but all that goes away. And once we get into the November, it's red versus blue.
Well, I'm very grateful for your time, and I hope about Wednesday you will come back and help break this down. And you were talking about the sides will have been chosen, and
Yep.
we'll be on to the big game for November.